What I'm going to do, I'm recording this session. So let's go through the first activity. And by having this recorded, if we have any problems, then we'll be able to come on back and watch it from the recording as well. So recording the first one. So I'm going to go through and have a look at this wages calculation. And again, what I'm doing is I'm picking up on some of the gaps that sometimes come through with people using spreadsheets. Not covering the basic stuff at all. We're assuming that you've under control with the entry-level aspect of spreadsheets. Now we're sort of trying to fine-tune. Now, if you have a look at this activity that I've got on screen here, it's a very, very simple little calculator where we've got Joe has worked 23 hours and Joe would like to be paid. The pay rate's $14.85. It's a little bit out of date, and I'm thinking it's a pretty paltry wage. You wouldn't get very far on that wage nowadays. In this particular example, the pay rate's $14.85 and the tax rate is 15%. We're just making an assumption. It's a flat rate of tax, just to give you an example of how we can go through this. What I wanted to do is step you through how we can do some calculations. Now, from a very, very simple point of view, if we type in an equals there, we can type in, okay, well, it's the hours work, which is cell B8. If I click on it, it'll type it in for me. And I want to multiply that, so it's a multiply symbol, by the pay rate. So that should give me the gross. So thinking about it, 23 hours, we should be looking at about $300 odd, $350, $341.55. So there you go.
So the first thing you typed in there after
the cell, B8, and then the times by symbol, which is the asterisk, and then the other cell. Now, the reason I've got this example is I wanted to illustrate a couple of things for you. If I go and copy that formula down, it makes perfect sense, but I want you to watch what goes really horribly wrong as I do that. Have a look at my formula now, and now start thinking about proofreading your way through and working out what's gone wrong with this one. It says up the top here, equals B11, which is that cell right there. Well, that's the hours for Sally. That makes perfect sense. But it's times by cell B7. So B7, that's the word, hours worked, the label. Exactly. So what you're seeing now is what we call relative cell referencing. When you put a formula in and then copy that formula down or across, relative to where it is, the formula adjusts itself. So I wanted to illustrate that to you because that's a really common one that goes wrong. So there's an obvious solution to this one though, and it's what we call absolute referencing. So up the top up here, see the cell B4, I don't want that to change. So if I put a $sign in front of the 4, the $sign acts as a lock, and it then becomes what they call an absolute cell reference. So if I put that $sign in now, that's my $sign right there. Now watch what happens when I copy it down now. It works perfectly, doesn't it? Because think about it, as I copy it down, the $sign locks whatever it's in front of. So in this case, it locked the row 4, because I don't want it to leave that cell just there, do I? So that's what they call absolute cell referencing. That's a feature that a lot of people miss out on in spreadsheets. And the funny thing is, if you don't get your head around that, it really does make your life a lot harder. I'll show you an alternate way of doing that one. I'll just delete all of that. Back in here again, I'm typing it in, it's equals, clicking on the hours worked, times by, and here, when I click on the pay rate, if I press F4 on the keyboard, it puts the $signs in for me automatically. Now, the only difference is it puts a dollar in front of the B and the 4, which means it locks the entire cell, and that's okay in this case. But I wanted to show you the alternate way, the first way, so you would understand you can do it manually if you ever need to.
So George, why would you use that to lock the B as well as the number up?
Only because the question is, why would you bother using the F4? It's quick. It's like a lot of the features that you use in spreadsheets nowadays. It's a quick, easy shortcut. That's all it is.
So instead of just going back and putting the $sign between the B and the number.
It does it for you. As in everything that I've pointed out to you all the way through this, I think you are far better off learning the manual methods first before you start using shortcuts. I'm just going to jump in over here. Someone's put their hands up. Janine, did you have your hands up? How are you going? Oh, Janine's saying, what was that shortcut? F4 on the keyboard. So function 4 at the top of your keyboard is the shortcut for making absolutes. Okay, let's jump back and let's have a look at the next one. So this time the tax, remember it's just a flat rate of tax for this example. So the formula is going to be equals this one here, gross, times by, so I'm just using the multiply symbol, the asterisk, and it's this one here. So again, what's the shortcut to lock that cell? F4 on the keyboard, press that, press enter, and straight away I can now copy that down and it works perfectly. But let's see what else we can do to save a little bit of time. In fact, why don't we get rid of all of those things and let's work out what's the net rate of pay. How would you work that out? So net is after we've taken tax out. It's the gross minus the net, minus the tax. So gross minus tax gives you net. In fact, I would love to be able to have it so that I actually get my tax back, but that doesn't always work that way. Great theory, though. And here's the question on site here. Can I now highlight all of those and copy the whole lot down? And the answer is yes. And doesn't that save an amazing amount of time? So again, these are some of the tricks I wanted you to start thinking about, because this makes life easier for you. So there's my first recording. Now, the thing I want you to understand is that we're just using absolute cell referencing, which is using the dollar sign to lock them in. So I'm going to stop the recording on that one and start a new recording, and I'm going to show you another feature. And again, all of these will be sitting online for you to work your way through as well.